Hey everybody, it's Tony here with Rebel Financial. Welcome to our weekly live broadcast. Today from Charisma PR we have Andy Chiodo, and he is going to talk about his business and the freelance writing and how he helps companies position themselves and help the companies themselves be able to tell a story in just a few words. So welcome Andy, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I want to start by, Andy's been in this business for a long time. So I'd like you to just give a little bit of background about, how you got to getting in this business and how you got to where you are now.
Well, when I got out of college, the first job I could get was in marketing, although I'm a liberal arts major. So I followed that and got into a little bit of product management. Then I got into the advertising agency business, and I'd always been a writer. I was an advanced honors English major. So I got into that. And from there, I worked for several agencies until I decided I really needed to do my own thing. One of the things I have as a concern, particularly for my clients, is what's right for them, not what's going to be right for my pocketbook. And with large agencies, overhead tends to drive the creative process.
Right.
So I got into this, and I've enjoyed it. It's really a passion of mine to write.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So, I mean, we call ourselves Rebel Financial because we're a small company in this huge industry, because that's exactly how we feel. I mean, this industry often is trying to, take more money than they need to from people's pockets, so I appreciate that. One of the main themes on your website, and we'll come to your website later, is how you're talking about the value positioning statement.
Yes.
So that's a big thing and a reoccurring theme with the recommendations that you had on your website and how you work. So you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Some people call them taglines, but really what I'm doing is trying to find the unique capabilities of the company and putting them into the nirvana, or the holy grail is 3 words, although it's sometimes tough. But what you're really trying to do is, I look at a value positioning statement, it's kind of the nail that everything else hangs from. You're going to hang a picture, you've got to have a good nail.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with the value positioning statement. If we can encompass something that makes people go, oh, okay, I understand. I'm interested. I will read more. That's my job.
Okay. Well, and then that leads into a story too. I mean, your background, you've had some great successes, but let's talk about, how Sherwin-Williams came along and when you were working there.
It's an interesting story. I was actually working with their automotive aftermarket group, but we worked with the people. This is in Cleveland. There were a number of people that I got to meet and know and really respected. Some terrific technical guys. And I came to realize that unlike a lot of other people, Sherwin-Williams really knew what they were doing and made sure that everybody who worked for them was educated enough to be able to help customers, whether they're commercial or regular folks. And the agency who had the big account, which was all of the consumer business, was struggling a little bit, so they came, really kind of wanted to know, so they asked me if I'd do some freelance, and I said sure. So they said, we need to come up with some way of explaining what Sherwin-Williams does and why they're different. So I thought about it, and I said, well, if you want to know how to paint, ask Sherwin-Williams. And we all looked at each other and went, oh yeah, that'll work. So that was a number of years back, and I was delighted about 2 years ago, they came back to that same theme.
Well, I didn't even know they left it so much in my mind, so to ask that. We did some work on our house, we modeled some. It is funny because, you can go to Lowe's and other places, and I really like Lowe's, but for paint and all, there is a big difference in who you're talking to when you go to Sherwin-Williams. You really feel like they know their stuff, and they've got every possible color on the spectrum that you need, and they're great.
It's not just that, but the type of coating you need for your specific job. No offense, but if you go into a big box store, I mean, those people they're well intended, but they're lucky if they can tell you what aisle the stuff is in. So asking any specific questions, you really need to go someplace where you get the expertise and somebody can say, no, if you want to do that, you need this and this and this. And even their systems are built. If you're going to do something where you're going to put a really dark color on a wall, their system will say, you need to buy this primer too before you put that paint on. And before we'll sell it to you, you gotta buy this primer because it won't work otherwise.
Right, and you're not going to get the results no, that's great. Reading about the value positioning statement, you use two words, different and intrusive. And so different, I understand, right? You want to distinguish yourself, but tell me what you mean by intrusive when you come up with that short statement.
Well, it's got to be something that stops people. You know, the attention span now, according to what I'm reading, we're talking about 1 second for people to say, I might want to look at this, and 7 seconds for them to get some reason to read further. If you look at any statistics on most people's website, a lot of people come and they're there for less than 10 seconds. So,
and then they've made a decision whether they're going to pursue more or whether they're going to go do something different.
yeah, and you know, a lot of people talk about mobile. If you're going to buy something expensive, people will look on mobile to sort of do a quick search, and then they'll go back and do a bigger search, at least some of them will, on a desktop, because they want to go through and make sure of what they're doing and who they're working with before they make a decision.
Right.
So you got to be able to do both.
Okay. I don't think, excuse me, I think it's so much in our subconscious that the really successful companies we think of with the taglines, we just think of it and it comes to us, you know. So if you can really come up with that Ask Sherwin-Williams, that great, small, successful line, it really sticks with people for a long time. And the companies are able to use that tagline forever, and it just becomes part of their identity.
Well, unfortunately, they get tired of it a lot sooner than the people do. You know, there's this urge to do something new, and you really don't need to do it. Over the years, I've done a lot for big businesses and small. I mean, a title company I work with, they really do a great job. So the value positioning statement I came up for them was close with confidence, because if you don't close.
Right.
I mean, you know, that's close with confidence. That's 3 words, so I'm really excited about that one.
Right. No.
But other ones like that, because how do you know? If you're looking on the web, it means that you haven't been referred to somebody personally, or you're trying to check people out and figure out who you should do business with. So if you can do something that kind of prejudices them to say, oh, you know, these guys, I kind of get this. This is kind of comfortable for me. This is what I'd like to see happen. You're really miles ahead.
Right. Okay. So we've talked about the words, you know, to try to connect with people. What about the visual aspect? I mean, obviously that's important, but how does that come into it from where you stand?
Well, a couple ways, because I like to think I'm more than just a guy who can write. A lot of it is to take a look at what is going to make the impression you want on a customer or a potential customer. So when I work with a web designer, we kind of talk about what do we got to show, how do we have to show it, and again, getting back to mobile, words are probably more important immediately on mobile, but they still want to see some pictures. A design for the current world, the mobile customer, and that takes a little bit of working. So
yeah, unless I bring my laptop home, which I do often, I don't even have a PC at home anymore. I mean, you know, like you said, your initial information is coming from your mobile phone, and that's just become increasingly important.
yeah, that's the reason I do a lot of research. I read, I can't tell you how many different blogs, how many different websites and stuff, and you know, all the news I can find to try and keep current, because one of the things that really is, I guess I should say, a little scary, is a lot of people do a website and then never do anything with it. It stays there, and you know, it's not like a sign on the front of your building. Things change, and they change rapidly, and if you don't have the right things going on, well, I'll give you an example. This has nothing really to do with me, but there's a big thing going on now about security, obviously. And one of the things is if your website doesn't say HTTPS, if you don't have what they call an SSL license, it's not secure. 60% of the websites out there are not secure. And Google has said that in a few more months, you're not going to get found.
Right. And so not going to put you there, yeah. And you're right. I mean, when we quickly these days become accustomed to the latest thing, and when something is a little more outdated, you know, it's very noticeable.
It
You know,
is.
as we change and we expect things to be faster and quicker and easier, and if we see something that's great on a website, you know, you kind of expect, from a technical point of view, that to be carried over to someone else. So
There's also the movie influence. Movies have become more and more sophisticated. There's a lot more computer-generated imagery.
Right.
So if you're doing something with, you know, basically stick figures, a lot of people just they're not gonna get it. It's gonna go, well, these guys are in the dark age. Nobody wants to do business with someone who's not really up to modern standards. So you better be able to make that work.
you got to keep up on it, yeah.
Yeah.
So you've been doing this for a number of years, right? I mean, just off the top of your head, what's a change or two? I mean, what's some of the biggest changes that you've seen? Obviously, right, we have now the internet and things like that, but is the way that you know, how you come up with words and things like that, does that need to be different?
Yes and no. That's the easy answer to give, because there are some eternal truths, but a lot of it depends on how you place the words. Let me just kind of go a little bit into that.
Sure.
Some things no longer work. You can't have really long copy. Nobody's going to read it.
Mm-hmm.
That used to be very popular, particularly in direct marketing. So that really has changed. I can remember when people used to write these long, I don't know what to call them, stories on their website, and you'd have to go to 6 or 7 pages to get to the point.
Mm-hmm.
That's death on a pale horse these days. You really have to have something that gets across the basic ideas. I guess the best way I can say it is, from the looks side, it's what's called UX, user experience. Is it interactive? Does it look modern? Is it look something cool? Am I going to want to use it?
Right.
And then there's the other side, which is user engagement. That's what's really my field of dreams. That's what I do for a living.
Right.
You can get somebody to a website through SEO, you know, search engine optimization. Mechanically, you can do a whole bunch of things. But once they get there, they still have to make a decision. So the eternal truth is, you got to have a value positioning statement that's going to start them on the way to saying, okay, these people might have what I want, and then you have to, you know, pay it off. You got to talk about what the benefits are and why they should do business with you instead of somebody else.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Like you said, I know in a lot of ways it has stayed the same, you know, but I suppose just the channels and stuff are just
Oh my
different
goodness.
these days. So, well, let's do this. I wanted to show, I know you talked about the fact that you'll be changing your update, making updates on your
Yes.
website soon.
Yes.
But we do want people to know, because the address isn't going to change, right?
No.
So I'm going to ask Jonathan and Eileen, we're going to go to the website here. It's Charisma PA. PR.com.
Mhm.
So just, you know, quickly, what we talked about, we're home right now, but you could find your good contact information here in
Yes.
ways. But also some of the things that we talked about, right? One of the things we didn't talk about was all these things are important. It's not just a matter of online, right? And
Everything needs to be consistent. We used to call it, you know, a unified marketing perspective. But what you say, what you put in print, whether it's online or offline, has got to all be, you got to talk to the same principles.
right.
Even people, I sometimes get involved in doing training materials, because you don't want somebody going what we call off-brand and saying something like, well, I know what we said on the website, but here's how we really do it.
Right.
That's, you know,
Right.
that makes me cringe.
Right. So you got to have buy-in from people. I mean, it's not going to be successful if you don't have the buy-in.
Everything that's
to it.
said, everything that's written should be designed really, I don't want to sound like the word Nazi, but it should be resonate with what the basic premise is.
Yeah. Okay. And that makes sense. So and then a little bit about you, and you know, but also some of the things with, you know, I won't spend too much time. You'll see some of the good testimonials, and also you know, even reading the testimonials, you'll see what a great job you did on the value positioning statement. I mean, those little catchphrases that work well for people and for
Sure.
companies, and get you to remember. But you know, to get some information, there's a couple different ways, including, you know, the blog. How often are you putting something in the blog here?
I try to do it as much as I can.
Okay.
my issue in some cases is I'm doing work for other people, so
Right.
I go on the back burner, but I've kind of made a moral decision that I'm gonna have to, at least one day of the week, spend on my work.
Right, and keep that going, so.
Yeah.
So I was home, but again, here's the, more about, you again, and
Mhm.
then some of the,
Things I use, and some of the clients I've worked with.
okay, well, great. A little about Sherwin-Williams stories and some of the other ones that you've worked with as
Yeah,
well, so.
Eli Lilly is particularly an interesting story.
Okay.
When I was working with them, they had, Lilly has always been big on patents. They've always had the patent for the product.
Okay,
And on the animal health side, which is what Elanco is, I mean, if you go and buy heartworm medicine for your dog or your cat, it's going to be Elanco. They hadn't kept up with their patent work. So we had to go back and say, you can continue doing business by reminding people of what a good corporate citizen you've been. You've sponsored the 4-H. You go out and do stuff to help people with their herds or their business. So that's why we came up with that line.
Okay.
We're riding your side of the fence.
yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
So, okay. So go to, again, charismapr.com and browse around there and you'll see a little bit about what Andy has done in the past, so.
Yeah, and come back in about a month and we'll have you.
A month? Okay, so bookmark it today and come back in a month or so,
Yeah.
so. Anyway, so thank you. So a couple finishing notes here. One is we are now, should be putting Andy's contact information, because you can always call and email him as well. So Jonathan and Eileen will be putting that up as well. And also you'll be seeing some disclosures from us. So, but thank you for joining us. And next week we're going to have Evelyn Chamberlain from Oakland Nursery here to talk about, the trade secrets of a nursery and the things that they do. So, but thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks.